Hello and welcome to The Gist. I'm your host, Chris Vetrano, here every week to break down all the things that are happening in pop culture. And today I have one of the hottest new actresses on the rise. You may know her from her roles in ABC's Blackish, Netflix's Black AF, and you can currently catch her as the star, opposite Julia Stiles in Prime Video's The Lake. Please welcome Madison Shamoun. Hey, Madison.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So excited to chat with you today. Congrats on The Lake. It is super, it's all over Prime Video and it's super funny in its second season.
Oh my gosh, I appreciate you saying that so much. Thank you. It's been the craziest 2 months almost. Wild.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, and like I said, season two just dropped. But tell for folks that are listening that may not have yet dipped into The Lake, give them a little bit about what the show's premise is.
Yeah, I mean, the show follows a family in Canadian cottage country during their
Mhm.
wild summers. And we're back for season two. I play Billy, a teenager who's trying to reconnect with her birth dad and kind of grow into her young adult self. So we've got sibling feuds, we've got wacky stepmoms, we've got a farce, an ongoing mystery this season.
Mhm.
Our show has been described as like Schitt's Creek's raunchier older sister.
I love that. It is. Yeah, I didn't actually think about that. And obviously, like, I don't want to give away too many
Right, right.
plot points because there's a lot to watch if you haven't seen it again. It's in season two already, but it's a really like kind of quick, fun watch. It is like Schitt's Creek in that
Yeah,
way, where you can kind of just binge a bunch of it, and it feels like so easy to watch and really
yeah.
funny. Um, and obviously, you mentioned your birth father, Justin, who's played
Right.
by Jordan Gavaris.
Tavares, he's Greek.
Gavaris.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Gavaris. You guys both have such amazing chemistry. The show starts, so I'm not giving anything away. As you're maybe not excited to spend the summer with your birth father, but sort of getting pushed into doing it. But you guys end up with this incredible chemistry.
Yeah.
Was that happening behind the scenes, like when you guys met, or how did that come to
Oh,
life?
100%. I feel like we talk about this all the time, but we had to do our chem read before we booked the job over
Hmm.
Zoom because it was still kind of peak pandemic.
Right.
So we hopped on Zoom and we both walked away feeling like it was the best chem read either one of us had done. And chemistry read is the actual term for it for those who
Right.
don't know, but it's just testing to see if you work with the other actor. And with technical difficulties, with all of the things that come along with Zoom meetings and callbacks, it was amazing. Like it was just palpable. And I felt like I had known him my whole life. And then we got to set, and that's kind of what it's been ever since. Like we're best friends. I could not love that man more or say better things about him. He's everything you think he is and some. So we got really lucky because that's not always the case when you walk onto set. And we're just thrilled that it worked out this
Yeah.
way. It felt organic and natural, and we just fit together. We're kind of like two peas in a pod, and he's a bit of his character and I'm a bit of mine, so it works out really well.
Yeah. I was wondering, that was going to be what I was going to ask you, is how much of Billy do you feel like you are personally? Because it does
Yeah.
come across so natural.
I mean, I will say I did base her off of a couple people that I know. She's like a culmination of some people just because she's way younger than me. So she isn't fully me, but there's always a bit of me in every character I do. And we do have some core things in common. Like we're both very big about advocacy, especially when it comes to the planet and nature. But
Hmm.
we'll push the paper. We won't go chop it down. Like we're very much from behind the scenes.
Yeah.
We don't love being in nature, the bugs and the heat and all that. But so stuff like that, her and I have in common. But mostly she's a bunch of people for me.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like Jordan is sort of similar. Like I feel as though, even though I don't know him or I've never met him
You
off
know,
of the show, but it seems as though that is really natural character for him too, which I feel like probably is what brings you guys together with this chemistry from day one.
yeah, he definitely is. I mean, I think he said this, so I'm not speaking for him, but he has said he's like it's just so exciting to get to play a character that I feel like is like a heightened version of myself because he's, been on Orphan Black and all these other shows where he's doing accents and playing people who are so different than him. This was the first time he told me that he felt like, oh, I actually get a bit of me in here. So I think he also was thrilled. And yeah, what you see is what you get. Apart from Justin being super selfish,
Yeah.
Jordan is not like that at all.
Yeah.
But all the fun bits, the quippy, witty humor, that's all Jordan too.
Yeah. No, I love that. And there's so many side players too that are just so funny in the show. And obviously we mentioned Julia Stiles
Oh yeah.
is stars in it, as well as the, I don't know, I don't want to say diabolical because I don't want people to think it's it's some kind of like suspense thriller, but
Yeah,
she's just this like mean stepsister, right? That
yeah.
is out to get Justin and you, really.
Yeah.
Um, and again, trying not to give away too many plot points, but what was it like working with Julia Stiles, given that she is so well respected and has been doing this for so long?
I mean, it's wild, really. And it's so funny that you say that because I had friends texting me after season one dropped, and they were like, "Oh, like she's playing the villain, like she's the antagonist. Like,
Yeah.
is she like that? Like, what was that like?" And I'm like, Julia Stiles could not be further from Maisie May. Like, if some of us are a bit of our characters, I don't think she is at all like
Yeah.
Maisie May. She is the most like grounded, wonderful, normal, like she's a mom, like she's not at all what Maisie May is, really the complete opposite. And working with her was just fabulous. I mean, when I found out that it was her, I tried to avoid all of her movies at all costs because I didn't want to like panic and freak out and
Right.
fangirl because I was like, oh, I have to work with her for 3 months. So I avoided that. And then I got to set and she's just so cool. Like, she's like, can we run lines, please? Like, can we work on the scene beforehand? And yeah, she's a good friend. I actually just saw her like a few weeks ago in New York and she's well as ever. So
Amazing. Yeah. And so it's the show shoots in Canada,
yeah.
but you weren't there before. But some of the stars do live there. But is it just you and Julia that are not?
Yeah, so it is a Canadian original, and it
Yeah.
does shoot like outside of Toronto. Pretty much everybody except for me, Jordan, and Julia. And it's interesting because Jordan was born in Canada and is a Canadian citizen, but then spent most of his life living in the States, and now he's a U.S. citizen. So technically, he's like dual. Julia is from here, but her husband is Canadian. So I'm
Yeah.
really the only person who has no connection to Canada whatsoever. I'm like the one American, but our crew and the supporting actors, our producers, everyone is Canadian.
Nice. And stepping back a little bit, tell me about how acting, because I listed some of your credits and that's not even all of them. But acting has become something so big for you. Where did that start? Was that a childhood dream? How did that sort of come to be?
Oh man, yeah, childhood dream. It's just been. I just feel like it's been my whole life at this point. Like, I always say that I came out of the womb like singing and dancing, and my parents didn't know what to do with me. So my mom just like threw me in every performative, like extracurricular. She's like, go do dance, go to musical theater, go do ice skating, cheerleading, gymnastics, just everything. And when I was like 12 or 13, I told my parents I wanted to act. I was like, I know what it is. I figured it out. This is it. And so then I started doing like commercial workshops and more theater. And then in high school, I was starting to think about college because my parents were like, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? And I said, I think it has to be LA or New York because I want to keep acting. And I ended up going to UCLA, studying acting there, and then got my team together once I graduated. And I've just been, yeah, trying to work ever since.
Yeah,
Crazy.
and working you have,
Yeah.
you're in addition to the lake, you're also recurring on the CW's All American,
Yeah.
and I mean these are shows that are really relevant right now. They tell really important stories, and it's so interesting that you said the Schitt's Creek thing because I never thought that, but it does have such a similar sort of thread in it, in the way, in the
Yeah.
the vibe.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm interested because the series celebrates queer culture, provides a ton of representation. Obviously, you on All American also play a lesbian character.
Yeah.
Tell me, how has that been in terms of the community, the LGBTQ plus community? Have you felt like an outpouring of love from them to be welcomed into this sort of space where you're creating such a safe space on TV?
Yeah, I mean, it's just been wild. I think people have been really, really welcoming. And it's so interesting. Yesterday, I saw that Renee Rapp, she's leaving her show on Max, and she had
Yeah.
said, like a lot of the times, like queer stories are just kind of like overlooked or they're like simplified or it's kind of like the same plot line for every queer person. And I haven't felt that way about the
Hmm.
characters that I've been able to play. And I just feel really grateful about that. And I think it kind of just speaks to how amazing our writing staff is on everything that I've worked on. The writers feel like family and it's very collaborative. So they come to you and they're like, how do you feel about Billy with a girl? Like, would she do that? What's your hot take on that? Because I now have been sitting with this character for years.
Hmm.
And so next to like the showrunner, they're like, Madison knows this person just as best. So it's been great. Like, I feel extremely lucky. And I also know that that isn't the norm, but we're getting there. We'll
Yeah.
continue to get there.
Yeah. Well, and I think, and you mentioned the norm too, because, you know, in season two, you end up in a bit of a love triangle. And I think part of that is that that wasn't your character really in season one.
Yeah.
And you were able to sort of build upon it, which is what a lot of people's real life stories are. Like we, I recently just had, someone on the show who was a real housewife. And later in life, she came out as a lesbian,
Yeah.
and she's like, I'm a late in life lesbian. I've always been there, but it's something that I'm like feeling now. And, that's a real story for people. And a lot of it too is that, for me growing up as a gay kid, there wasn't a lot on TV. Like I can think back to like a Will and Grace, or I
Yeah.
can think
The
back
two
to the,
people, high
the,
school
the
people.
yeah, exactly. It's like the few that you knew, and they were stereotypical, or it was such a big thing because there wasn't that representation. And
Yeah.
shows like the ones that you're on are creating this real like normalcy into different ways in which queer culture can be part of our community and our world. And
Yeah.
so it's really great to see, where how far we've come from those days when I was a kid and didn't have that to look for, and now you are somebody that is creating, a life where someone can like watch the show and go, oh, I kind of feel this way, or I feel like I could end up in this place where, I'm interested over here or here. And you're inspiring somebody in that way, which is awesome.
Oh my gosh, I hadn't even thought of it that way before. That just gave me chills. No, that's crazy because Jordan talks about that too. He's like, this is the first time I'm playing a character where them being queer isn't the storyline, they just are. And that's the
Hmm.
norm. And the only people who talk about that in a negative way are the antagonists, like Maisie May. And it's, jocular, it's funny, and they make fun of him for it, but like in a way that's like loving and familial in the way that like your family members would. And similarly for my character, like she's so young. And
Hmm.
like when I think about myself being 16, 17, 18, like I didn't know what I was interested in. And like, sexuality for me has been changing my whole life. And I'm sure it'll keep evolving and growing and changing. It's just what it is. And so similarly for her, that's kind of what we discussed this season was like, I think that Billy's the type of person who would just like people, but she's
Hmm.
never had that before. Like this is the first time a girl or she's been attracted to a girl. And seen someone in that light. She just hasn't before. It's just always been men, but she is someone who would be super open to it. So yeah, oh, it's so wild.
Yeah.
We put that into perspective.
Yeah, I mean, and there's going to be someone someday that has seen your characters, and they will probably attribute it to their comfortability in being who they are. And I think that's something to like always sort of wear that flag, because like I
Yeah,
said, like it wasn't there for me growing up, or if it was there in a character like Will or Jack from Will and Grace, it was like you either had to be one of those two
yes,
types of things, and there just wasn't anything else. And so it didn't feel like I could find my footing. And I think that's what's
yeah,
wonderful about that.
yeah,
Um,
definitely.
and I know, and I can't remember his name, but the boy, Maisie May's son,
Oh,
um,
Killian.
yeah, Killian, and he does like the Liza performance in season one at the talent
Oh,
show.
Opal, her other son.
Oh,
Excuse me.
Opal. Oh,
Declan,
right, right, right.
yeah.
Yes,
Played by
sorry.
Declan. Declan's amazing.
Yeah, not your
Not my
love
ex.
interest. Yeah. Um, but yeah, it's like, even seeing that and seeing like kids like that on screen doing Liza Minnelli, it's like
Yeah, it's great.
it's really cool.
Yeah.
Um, And then speaking of the talent show, in that episode, we got to hear you sing. You did a cover of "You Gotta Be," um, and that version of it, for anyone that wants to go listen, is on Spotify and streaming platforms. Um, is music something that, one, you're interested in, and two, is it something that you're pursuing?
Um, it's like yes and no. Because I did musical theater growing up, I did learn to sing and I had vocal lessons, and I do love to sing, but I think I love to sing for me. It's just
Hmm.
kind of something. There's one thing for me that I might not want to capitalize on,
Yeah.
but also similarly, I'm kind of like, if the right role like this came along, the right person, the right script necessitated it, and the character had to sing or did sing, if I had the chops for it, if my vocal range fit it, I 100% would do it. But I'm not seeking out those roles, and I'm not trying to like attract any sort of like musical career, especially because my type of singing is more like classical. It's more musical theatery. Like I'm more like a soprano,
Hmm.
so it's not very poppy or indie. Like I have to work a little harder to do that stuff. So yes and no. Also, though, if anyone ever asked me to play Mrs. Lovett and Sweeney Todd on Broadway, I'd do it. Of course, I would kill. So yes and no.
So when you're, in your car, in your shower, maybe you're singing. What are you singing? Is it
Oh
is it
yeah,
musical theater?
it's show tunes. Like I love Sondheim, so like Into the Woods, Sweeney Todd, all of that good stuff. But right now, I have SZA and Beyonce on
Hmm.
repeat, SOS and Renaissance. So a little bit of both.
Are you going to be able to see the Beyonce show?
My God, man, if I don't, it'll be the end of days. Like I'm texting everybody I know. I'm trying to go. Getting tickets it's rough
And
right now. It's rough in these streets, but I'm trying.
yeah, um, I I mean, just this year in general, concerts were something so big for me growing up and going and
Insane.
seeing it. And it's like, it's insane trying to get tickets. And, the
Yeah.
Taylor Swift debacle, the amount that people are paying to see
Oh,
Beyonce. It's
oh
like,
my gosh, I know I mean, it's crazy. Like what you would pay back in the day for like a box seat or like a VIP section is now what you're paying for like the nosebleed bleacher seats. And also like Harry Styles, like Drake, like everybody's on tour this year. Everybody's on a
mhm,
tour. And we
yeah,
have Coachella and Stagecoach. Like we have all these things. It's crazy. It's out of control, and I love it. And I wish I could go to all of them.
yeah. Yeah, so you do love music.
I do.
You just listed all the things. So you are loving, like, being a connoisseur of it.
Yes, I don't know if I want to open that door for myself, but I do. I love it.
So musically, though, very inspired by musical theater. But in terms of acting, what was there any like roles or actresses or somebody that, like, when I mean, this started very young for you,
Mhm.
the desire to be on screen. Was there somebody that you saw and you were like, that's who I want to be, or that was the turning point for you?
Ooh, but like so many people. I mean, it's a long list, and it's also so funny that we're talking about music because I just said no, I'm not interested. But I remember like my friend showed me the Phantom of the Opera with Emmy Rossum
Hmm.
when I was like 5 years old, and I just was like, my jaw was on the floor. I was like, who is this woman? Like, can I do that? I want to do that. And I watched that movie like hundreds of times until I had all the music memorized. So yeah, that movie kind of that's like at the forefront of my mind right now. But I
Hmm.
used to watch like Anne of Green Gables on PBS, and I was like, oh, I want to do that so bad, like getting to live out the books that I used to read, you
Right.
know.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so yeah, honestly, there's so many things like Practical Magic, like Stepmom with Julia Roberts, like all of those like 90s, early 2000s movies where like that were like mostly female actually. I was like, I just want to be those women. I want to do
Yeah.
what they're doing. And if it was a book turned into a movie, I was on board. I was like, that needs to be me one day.
Yeah, and very female led and focused. The
Yeah.
characters weren't a lot of like male presence in those, at least in those
Yeah.
films.
I've never thought about that either. That is so funny. I'm
Yeah.
reflecting today. We're getting into
I love it. I love it. That's what we do. Yeah,
it.
I mean, and the thing is like, I'm not in entertainment, and I'm not a singer, I'm not an actor, but there are things like that I can draw back where I'm like, oh, I became obsessed with entertainment culture,
Yeah.
or I became obsessed with these things because of that. And I think, like, Phantom of the Opera sounds like that's something that came right to mind, and I think that's probably a good one for
That
you.
was a big one. Also, this just came up. The Mummy, the first Mummy with Brendan Fraser and
Yeah,
Rachel Weisz, like all of the women in that movie too. I was like, wow, they get to like do fight scenes because usually like the action movies that I watched growing up were predominantly men.
yeah,
Kind of still are, but it's getting better. And I remember watching that and I was like, those two girls have knives and they're like throwing them at each other. And then I would like play that with my neighborhood friend. We would like act out that scene, reenact.
yeah. No, that's amazing. I mean, I could see you doing something like that, and
I'd
in
love
a
to.
reboot of the X-Men, or in the next
Oh
X-Men
my
or something
gosh,
like
I'd
that.
kill. I love
Yeah, amazing. And if you haven't seen Kelly Clarkson and Josh Groban
oh,
from singing the Phantom of the Opera, oh gosh, what's the song? I'm blanking. The all
Sing for Me, that one or the other, the
It's
last.
the like all I have.
Oh, oh, the one where they're in the rain on the rooftop, that
I
one?
think so. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Um,
I'm not gonna start singing it because I'm like trying to sing it in my head, and I'm like, oh wait, what is the chorus? Now I've
that's like
lost it.
All I Ask of You, I think.
All I ask of you, yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You've got to
Oh,
check
they've
that out
got
if you haven't
great
seen it.
voices. I'm literally gonna do that after this, right after this.
One of the best performances. We watch it all the time. My husband and I watch it, and my husband always cries, no, even though he's seen
Oh
it
my
like a thousand
gosh.
times. Yeah, and
I'm in
that's
the,
what introduced me to Phantom. I had never seen it, and I saw that performance, and I was like, "Oh, I've got to see this
you were one.
movie." Yeah.
Yeah, I just saw Josh Groban on Broadway playing Sweeney, and I was like,
Mm.
the man has a voice of an angel. So I bet I'll cry too when I go watch
Yeah,
this.
well, definitely check that one out. I know that you were also in. I'm in Nashville, and so
Oh,
I wanted to just shout out because you were in our girl Maren Morris's girl video,
yeah,
keeping the girl thread
yeah.
of your.
Oh my gosh.
Um, and how was that? Did you get to meet Maren?
That was you really did a deep dive. Good on you. I That was directed by Dave Meyers, which is like he's a famous
Oh
music
yeah,
director and director. He's done like some of the best stuff. And I just remember having a really good time. I didn't get to meet her. That music video was, I'm sure you've seen it, like a bunch of different girl kind of montages and
yeah,
video bits. So I did mine, like we were in the rain. I was with a bunch of really cool girls, but no, ours was separate. Like we had this house rented and we were all in different parts of it with different cameras trying to get these bits. So I didn't get
yeah.
to meet her, unfortunately, but I've heard lovely things about her. I've heard she's fabulous.
Yeah. And I think that was, I'm trying to remember, I think was that COVID times too, or pandemic times?
That was literally like right before COVID.
Right before it.
I
Okay.
think I shot that in like December, like the our winter in
Yeah.
California, big winter. But I shot that right before everything happened, I think.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. Because I know the album was kind of on that cycle during kind of those times and stuff.
Yeah,
So, well, it, you've got to do more stuff in music, or maybe, as you said, like do Broadway,
yeah.
and keep giving us the voice, because I think you have a beautiful voice, and I
Thank
liked your version of the
Thank you
Desiree
so
song.
much. Maybe I'll attract some stuff. Who knows? I'll be open to it. I'll keep that door slightly ajar.
Yeah, I think like musicals too are becoming, it seems like they're becoming more popular. There was like a
Yeah,
moment where like Broadway was struggling, and and
yeah,
I've been curious if like the pandemic has sort of turned that around for people, in that, now that people can go out again after years, like were people
mhm,
sort of flocking back to the theaters. They're not flocking to the movie theaters as much because
yeah,
streaming has taken over our worlds, and we can binge and we can see
yeah.
everything in our homes. But but yeah, it's really interesting because I have noticed that there is a lot more people talking, a ton of actors and singers that are talking about like their next thing they want to do Broadway.
Yeah, it's wild. I think it's that. I think it's the pandemic, like you said. I also think there's so many more musicals now that are like palatable for younger people, like Hamilton.
Hmm.
And we like, I feel like traditionally musical theater was kind of for a certain group of people who could afford it and who could go see it and who had the ear for like, long Italian French operas that they kind of evolved into cabaret. Like, musical theater's always had like its moment. And its moment right now, like you said, is like movie musicals. Like we have Mean Girls, the Broadway version being turned
Hmm.
into a Sony Pictures movie. So
Yep.
I think between like the pandemic and then that, like it's on the up and up.
Yeah. Yeah. And they just started the uh, oh, I think it's called like one more once upon a one more time. Once upon a one more
Oh
time.
yeah.
The Britney Spears musical.
Oh my gosh.
It
Yeah.
looks it looks really cheesy. The
Yeah.
like the story looks really cheesy, but I'm like,
But the
all
music.
Britney music, like that sounds like a party. I want to go to
Yeah,
that.
it's like Moulin Rouge, like all the music in Moulin Rouge is just a fun, good time. Like go and just have a party.
Just Dance, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Amazing. So speaking of what's next, what is next for you now that the second season of The Lake has wrapped?
Oh my gosh. Things that I can't ever talk about. I always have to say stay tuned because they make us sign NDAs. They don't let us
Yeah,
talk about anything. But also on the flip side, I don't know truly too, because even the things that I'm looking forward to doing with the writer strike and potential
yeah,
actor strike, like there might not be content for like a year and a half, 2 years. So I have things planned, but
yeah,
what do they say? Like make plans and God laughs. So yeah,
yeah.
so stay tuned. I
Yes.
can say about that.
Well, and where can people stay tuned so that they can
All right.
stay up to date as you can announce these things?
Yes, yes. They can follow me on Instagram. It's just my name, Madison Shamoun. What else am I on? I'm not on Twitter. I just got on Threads. Also my name, Madison Shamoun. Threads is like the Wild West right now.
Yeah.
And IMDb too. Like you can always check out what's going on in anybody's life in the industry on
Not
there.
not dipped into TikTok yet.
You know what's so funny? I'm one of those people who would it like shadow watches TikTok. Like I never
Hmm.
post, I don't share, reshare anything, but I just like can scroll for hours. But you would think I have no account. Like I have no footprint on TikTok.
Yeah.
You know?
It's so interesting because actually in the interviews that I do for this podcast, a lot of the people actors and actresses are uh, not on TikTok, or they
Ah.
sort of feel like I have no interest in being on TikTok, even though your life is on screen and doing comedy and doing these things like seems like so natural, whereas like me trying to do something on TikTok just feels ridiculous. It's like
Oh
that this
yeah.
should be built for you, but
I
it is
wonder,
interesting.
I wonder if it's because like we have to be like the people who do TikToks. My hats off to them because you have to be your camera person, you have to be the DP, you have to
Yeah.
write your own stuff. Like maybe us actors are like we're just actors, and the people who do TikToks really have to do all of it. They have to be their everything. The producer, they have to edit it. Like that sounds exhausting to me.
Yeah, I guess that's probably true. It is exhausting, and I can tell you as someone
Yeah,
that has tried to, do it because it feels like you have to promote stuff. And
yeah,
I'm always like,
yeah.
I have friends that do it really well, and I'm like, man, you just must spend hours. And like, no, it's really easy. Like once you get the hang of it, you just do it. And I'm like,
Not
I'm
for
just
me.
not going to be that person. But
Same. I think I've like succumbed to it. I've surrendered. I'm like, it's not me. It's not who I am.
yeah, well, awesome. And you're still going to be Sky on All American, right? You're continuing that recurring role.
I also have to say stay tuned about that
Okay.
because they got renewed, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But All American, it's always hard scheduling wise because when my show shoots and when they shoot, that's why like when I come in as Sky, it's typically like later in the season. I'm
Right.
usually there after episode 10 on. So I'd love to come back. I think I might, but also I can't say. So stay
Yeah.
tuned.
Yeah, so just stay tuned. Madison
Yeah.
Shamoun on at least Instagram, maybe Threads, maybe you'll dip in until you realize it's really just Twitter, and you
Pretty
might not want to
much.
be there.
Pretty much.
Uh, yeah. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for stopping by today and chatting. I do want you to go check out the Kelly Clarkson,
Oh,
Josh
yes.
Groban
Thank you for
performance.
reminding me.
Yeah, I had to remind you because
Thank you.
it's
Thank
going to
you.
be life changing. And to all of you, like continue to follow her because I have a sense that you are truly the next thing. And I am so excited about the lake, and I'm urging people to go see it because Schitt's Creek is one of my favorite shows, and so I never put that connection together. But I'm so glad that you did for me, because now that's how I'm going to describe it to folks to go watch
Oh
it.
my gosh.
But thank you for coming by today and chatting with me.
Um,
And I will continue to watch and be excited for what's next.
oh my gosh, this was lovely. I love when interviews feel more like a conversation. I had such a good time. It's my pleasure. And you did not have to be that nice and say that, but I'll take it.
And I think my Siri just said you're welcome
Oh,
when
thank
you said
you, Siri.
that.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
But yeah, so we both welcome, or we both are saying you're welcome. But I truly believe it, and yeah, so thank you for stopping by.
Thank you.
For all of you out there, don't forget to rate and subscribe so that you never miss an episode of The Gist. You can follow me at CM Vetrano. I am on Twitter and TikTok sometimes, and then Instagram and Threads now. And then tune in next week for more from The Gist. And Madison, thanks again, and we'll chat
Thank you.
soon.
Yeah, I'll see you.
Bye.